Hey, Colin.
Hello, I think I can hear you.
No video, though.
Oh, I know what's going on. You're coming through my microphone speaker. Just hold on.
I just turned off my video.
Sound like Mickey Mouse. Try again. Yes.
Let's see.
No, I got you. It's not you. It's my digital microphone.
No, I'm just saying you're not sending video.
No, I'm not sending video. No. I don't have my video camera yet. I like it that way anyway. I'm more of a radio host. Radio participant. So I seen you just put something on Trello. I'm about to go check that out.
I just created a new board for our 2-year anniversary conversations.
Okay.
And we have Alex.
Yeah. I quickly put my thoughts out, which are pretty consistent, what you would expect from me, I think.
Mm-hmm. Actually, have you joined? Yeah, there you are. You have joined.
Let's see.
Actually, no, who's JC? Oh, Jaswinder. Jaswinder joined. You've not yet joined that Trello board.
Oh, it's a new one. Well, I'm just...
yeah, just to keep the noise out of this conversation, we still have to figure out how to merge. I think there is a way, but I just wanted to have some focus.
Yeah. No, I think it's sensible. Sign up. Here we go. Yeah. No, makes a lot of sense.
So if you just click on the link that I sent around to the 2 messenger group, you'll actually land right in that new Trello board.
Okay, I just got to look up my Trello account. I don't have that memorized. Maybe I'm using Google. I don't know. I'm slowly giving over to the single sign-on.
Big Brother will now know everything, yes.
That's what we got. Hey, Glenn.
Glenn, Alex, welcome.
Hello.
So, Glenn, in case you haven't seen the messenger group message, or Alex, both of you, I posted a new Trello board link that I'm using to suggest a way to structure conversation around this 2-year anniversary of GCC.
Oh, is that in the main document?
It's in the messenger group that's for barn raising regulars, and it's also in the GCC admins group.
Right. So is it the same Trello that we've been using before?
No, it's a new Trello, blank, tabula rasa, for focusing the conversation without distraction to the other stuff that we talked about. I think at some point, of course, it makes sense to merge the two. But right now, I just wanted to make sure we're not distracted by all that old stuff.
Cool. Yeah.
If you don't see the link.
I'll try to find it now. Just
Yeah.
uh,
Well, you can actually post it here in this. Let me do that. Let me post it here in this chat window. Here we go.
computer's a little slow today for some reason.
Whoa, wait, the wrong link. That's a Zoom link. All right, here we go. Invite. Okay, there you go. The link is in the. I wonder why.
I found it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I see that. Let's see, who's there? Colin's there. Jaswinder's there. I'm here.
I have to be a member, it says.
Oh, you've not signed on to Trello yet at all, then?
I think I have, but
All right, then let me add you if I can. Hey, Jaswinder.
log in. Hello.
Anyway, the link that Colin sent should work as well.
I found it now. Yeah. Successes, unsuccessful, continue doing, stop doing.
All right. So
Right.
I would recommend that we have some conversation around this being a 2-year anniversary. Now, the first question I'll ask, let me pop up a little bit and see what you guys think, okay? Oh, we see a local GCC. Oh, wait, that's Alex. Okay, so here's the thing. The actual 2-year anniversary is Monday. That would be September 30th. That does not fall on one of our regularly scheduled programming channels and dates and times. So we could either do a retrospective here, which I think would still be useful, or we could announce to the larger group that we will have a special session on Monday at a time to be determined, but most likely at the same time, where we can actually do that 2-year retrospective if people want to do so. Or, with permission from Doug, we could actually do it tomorrow. So those are all possibilities. So I just wanted to see what you guys felt about that to begin with. But then when we go into that conversation, I thought it'd be useful to take kind of a learning stance or a learning mindset. For me, a learning mindset is to reflect on what's worked, what's not worked, what we should continue doing that's working, what we should stop doing because it's not working, what we should start doing anew that we have not done before, hoping to improve on the way we do things, what we don't yet understand, and what we know we have to do, but we don't yet have time to do it. That would be the backlog. So that would be my proposal for how to structure a learning conversation, but that's not the only way to do it. That's just one way to do it, okay? So those are my 2 prepared questions coming into this particular call, and I open it to the floor for one of 3 things. Number 1, optional check-in. Number 2, opinion about when we should have a 2-year conversation, if we should have a 2-year conversation. And 3, feedback on how to do that conversation, perhaps feeding back on this proposal here, okay? And I am now done with the intro. Over.
Great. Yeah. Okay. I can just chime in. I don't have that much as sort of a check-in. Been working quite a bit, so busy days, but it's good. Yeah, that's why unfortunately I'm not gonna have time for all the conversations or even all the threads. But I mean, I'm sticking around, so I'm sort of playing the long game. But yeah, I love this idea. What about, for example, we can, I mean, touch on it a little today, and this could be like a preparation, and then we could have a special session on Monday. I think that would be popular. So yeah, but I love to discuss it a little bit today, and definitely a big fan of the whole learning mindset. I mean, I think maybe the learning mindset is really foundational for all of this. It's that's really when it becomes interesting if we're really on a learning journey. So, and another thing, I have a specific suggestion, is which might be helpful for barn racing calls and others that we might do a little better, is a little bit shorter comments with back and forth questioning responses, rather than, let's say, only the long monologues. Although they can be nice too, but every now and then that's what I miss, I guess. I feel could be very fruitful to really try to think together as a group in flow. Yeah, I think that's what I have. You have to unmute, Sam, if you, yeah.
Sorry about that. So just as a meta comment, as you were speaking, I caught your comment about shorter responses with more direct and focused Q&A. I put that in the start doing column or list in this new board. So if you're in the board, you can see this new card appear. Those of you who are following along. Okay, Glenn, thanks. Was there more in your check-in that I didn't capture, or was that the one suggestion that you... By the way, we're not in the conversation yet. This is check-in period, but I didn't want to miss that since you were in...
Okay.
You were actually...
Yeah, well, I think it really all comes under the umbrella of this learning mindset, and that you can really approach the conversations. For me, is sort of the essential thing is the meeting. So it's a very great opportunity, and that this questioning and thinking together in flow is something I've experienced sometimes, and it's a very, very beautiful and exciting thing. But then you need to be shorter and more concise and question if that's going to work. Yeah, I think that's really the main point. Try to get to.
So more meta notes. I put a initial column here called "How to" for this board, and I put your 3 suggestions there. The 3 are being: number 1, adopt a learning mindset; number 2, figure out how to improve, learn, be more effective; and number 3, do this together in flow. And those may actually end up going into some of these other columns, but we'll see. We are co-creating this. All right. Are you done with your check-in, Glenn?
Yeah.
Okay. Who would like to check in optionally or something else? Alex, there you go.
Optional check-in. It's and what else was it? You wanted to comment on your specific proposal earlier.
Well, the 3 suggestions were either number 1, your optional check-in, or number 2, give an opinion on which day to have the 2-year conversation. It could be today, it could be Monday, it could be tomorrow. And number 3, any specific feedback on how to have that conversation.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's a check back feed in. Okay. That's another way of putting it. And the routes that are going down from members of the GCC is interesting. Some of the proposals are being adopted. I mean, at least in my part of the world, I'll put down what you call a sprout. This is a sprout of the GCC. So hoping to see other people jump on board and do the same thing, because with the global sprouting happening, things will change quickly, and a lot more people will be able to recognize their local people and come on board. We are all one, but we are many. Over.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Colin, Jaswinder? Just Winter shakes his head. Colin is invisible. Okay, I will go. I've been having kind of a very dynamic range of experiences this past several weeks, especially this week. I've been working at something at work, which has been quite refreshing and actually quite fun, which is actually getting back to actually writing software, something I used to do decades ago. And so this is an opportunity to prototype a new product, a new service for the company. And I'm understandably rusty. So I appreciate the fact that the CEO and others are giving me the patience to dust off my rustiness or brush off my, whatever that metaphor works out to be. How do you dust off rustiness? I guess you don't. But anyway, I was just able to show a demo of the new prototype, or at least the first step of the new prototype working on Thursday to the CEO. He liked it, so he wanted me to present it on Friday morning to many other people in the company, so I did. So that's going well. So that's actually been really positive because it gets me out of a lot of meetings and more into bit twiddling, which is what I like to do in my spare time. And then secondly, on the other side of the spectrum, my good buddy, my best buddy for the last 8.5 years, Zeus, is in his last week or two of a very aggressive form of cancer that has hit his lymph nodes on the left side of his face. And so we're just trying to give him enough medication so that he can still have a good time until it becomes unbearable. So we're in the last week or so of being together with Zeus. And then again, flipping to the other side of the spectrum, last Sunday at 7:40 in the morning. Some of you guys may know I was not very present last Sunday because one of my girls, Tia, had puppies. So over the course of 7:40 a.m. to about 11:45, she had 10 puppies pop out of her. And we still have 10 puppies. And they're probably 2 or 3 times the size they were when they were first born. So it's been really fun to see the puppies grow. And Tia's being a very good mom. And I've already been in contact with a lot of people who've expressed interest in adopting these puppies. So that's actually quite a cool thing. I think I'm the only person here in the house that's not sick. Ronnie has a cough. Gail has had a really severe stomach upset thing for the last several days. She's here for a while. So anyway, things are up and down. Things are very dynamic, but I'm very, very focused still on getting my software twiddling capabilities back. For the geeks among you, that might be just Joshua for now. I'm actually doing it in Clojure, which is a JVM-based deployment platform. So it's actually quite a bit of fun because it brings me back to my Lisp days, but it gets me onto a modern deployment platform. Anyway, enough for me. I obviously have opinions about the second and third points, but since I proposed them, I'm going to refrain from responding to them right at the moment. Wait for everybody else. And then meta comment for Josh. Hey, Josh, what we're doing today is number 1, doing optional check-in. Number 2, trying to get some opinions or thoughts on whether we should have a 2-year conversation today or set up a special session on Monday, which is the actual 2-year anniversary, or to ask Doug whether we should do it tomorrow on the unblocking. But I can't usurp that, so we'd have to check and see if Doug's okay with that. That's question number 2. Question number 3 is there is a link in the chat window that is a new Trello board, which is a suggested / proposed structure for how we have the 2-year conversation based around a learning mindset. So the structure is basically, what did we do well? What are our successes? That's number 1. Number 2, what did we not do well? Where are we unsuccessful? That's number 2. Number 3 is what should we continue doing that's working? Number 4 is what should we stop doing because it's not working? Number 5 is, what should we start doing that we haven't done before? And number 6 is, what are all those things that we don't yet understand? So we should put them in the parking lot / backlog. And then the last one, which could be part of the previous one, is just, what are those things we know we have to do, but we haven't gotten around to? So that would be the backlog / roadmap. So that's and if you probably recognize that's an agile, a modified agile, an adapted agile frame of retrospective. So anyway, that's what we're doing, Joshua. And Glenn is gone, Alex is gone, I've gone. Colin is hiding, he's not yet gone. Jaswinder has opted to not check in, so it's whether or not you would like to do so. And then we can move forward into any of these topics. Over.
I'm just loving your energy, Sam. I literally rolled out of bed. I looked at my watch. I'm like, oh shit, it's 8:09. I wonder if I'm in a cloud right now. So I was like, I wonder if the solar is working in a cloud. So I rolled out of bed. I looked, there was solar going through the cloud. And I'm not even awake. I'm still in my dream. So I digested maybe an eighth of what you said, but I got number 1, number 2, number 3, number 6, number 7. Or number 6, but then, so I'm just waking up. It's great to see you guys. I'm glad your energy is so good, Sam. It makes me happy, and I'm sorry that Zeus is leaving to the next dimension, but it sounds like his legacy is quite amazing. So that's beautiful. And good to see everybody. Hi, Glenn. Let me see. I'm on a little tiny screen, so I can't see everyone. Who else is here? You said Alex is here? Hello, Josh Winder. Hello, Alex. So my check-in is I'm just wanted to say hello and see how everyone's doing and see if there was something that you wanted to do for the 2-year anniversary that I would be involved in. So if I'm just here to check in and see if there's something going on for the 2-year. So that's my.
Hello, David Middlemiss. I think, Sam, if you have to unmute.
Oh, sorry. I've been talking into a muted microphone here. So anyway, Josh, thanks for doing that. I was just saying, while you are defogging your brain, we'll welcome David. David, we're going to recap real quick what has happened to date. And that is that since we are within 2 days of the 2-year anniversary of GCC, we are doing 3 things to start this conversation. Number 1, an optional check-in, which we always do. Number 2, to see if you have any opinion, and you may not have a strong opinion on this since you're relatively, on whether we should have that 2-year anniversary conversation today or tomorrow or Monday being the actual 2-year anniversary. And then number 3, a proposed structure around how to have that conversation, which is captured in a Trello link to which you are now invited if you look in the chat area of this Zoom session. And just for Josh's purposes, it's quite serendipitous or coincidental that I put a cloud background on that dashboard, on that board, since you are in the clouds right now, Joshua. So anyway, that's how we're structuring the initial part of this conversation. So David, welcome. I think I did see you in last Sunday's conversation, right? But I was not there much because my puppy Tia was having more puppies. So we have 10 puppies from her. So I was quite distracted last Sunday. All right, so other than the people you see here, if you're on a real screen, Colin is not visible right now, so there's 7 of us, okay? So, I don't know, did that come across okay? Did you understand what's going on? Okay, so you have an option, to check in if you like, or respond to those questions 2 and 3.
Yeah, well, I feel good. Been communicating with some good people. Going to help out at an eco village tomorrow in the UK here. It is a community resilience weekend. So they're doing 2 talks, they're friends of ours. So I couldn't make it a day. So there are 3 of us going tomorrow to help out. So hopefully we'll be cooking and sort of looking after people, and we should see some of the talks as well. So it should be quite good. So yeah. and I'm going back to Thailand next Thursday, back to our eco village. So that's me complete. Thank you, guys.
Okay, then Colin, I guess you would be the last to see whether or not you want to check in before Joshua wakes up.
Yeah, I figured out my microphone problem here. It's a new operating system, so it's a charm. Everything's working now, thank goodness. Yeah, I think one thing you mentioned is that we might be starting to post these videos public as opposed to unlisted. So maybe you might want to talk
thank
about
you
that.
very much. I forgot to do that. So formally, we are saying we will post this recording of this session public unless one of you strongly objects. We just want to make sure that that's stated for the record. Okay. Thanks, Colin, for that reminder. If you strongly object, state so very strongly.
I don't strongly object, but I just have to calibrate on what it is I'm trying to achieve here, and also what I'm as we're trying to define what it is we're doing all the time. There's so many different people with different interests. So I guess my check-in is more about the process of what we're doing as opposed to anything personal. Although we also have a canine in our family that has reached the end of life and probably won't make it till Christmas. Pets are dear, that's for sure. But yeah, I do have some ideas around what we can possibly do to help focus and keep moving forward. I find that's one of my biggest difficulties in these groups is not it's not a waste of time, because the fellowship is worthwhile, and there's a lot of knowledge in the group, so you learn things serendipitously. But as far as trying to do anything productive, it seems that barn raising is the best place to probably achieve that. So I've been kind of pushing for more context and focus within this group. And I go to Sundays unblocking for more of the serendipitous stuff. So I'm hoping that this will turn into something more structured. So that's kind of going to be the slant of my contributions. I won't say any more about that right now, but thanks.
So Colin, as a meta note to you, I've added a card here called Be More Structured in the Start Doing list. And I've added a card called GCC we all come here with different objectives in the Not Yet Understood list. And those of you that have the board clicked will be able to follow along. Okay. All right. All right. Any last check-ins before we move into some focus? Alex, you had your finger up.
It's the collaboration event. We are part of it. If this is going live on Facebook or YouTube, the YouTubers that are watching will be able to click the button like and leave a comment, because this is a global collaboration conversation.
Wait, are you saying that you've already started the live feed to Facebook?
No, I'm saying this is you are recording this now, and it's going to be posted public, so it'll be visible to all you people that are watching on YouTube.
Yep.
This is us. This is the global conversation, the global collaboration conversation.
Yeah.
Which is what Doug preferred, and we thought about that. A couple of us were thinking about that, saying that sounds like a good idea. We'll put it to the vote. Maybe we'll get a name change, because 2 years is an anniversary. I think change is good if it's a positive change, and we'll see if democracy works in a group setting.
Good point. So this may be the first, it may be the only publicly shared video. We'll see what people think. So at some point, we will need to introduce what GCC is to those who are watching this, if any, those 1 or 2 or 3 people who may be watching this. So at some point, let's do that. But I just wanted to see if there was any optional chicken that was still waiting to be expressed. I'll take silence as a no. All right. So my first question was to see whether or not any of you felt strongly about whether we should have that conversation here, or whether we would be wanting to set up a special conversation on Monday, since that's the actual 2-year anniversary of the GCC submission. Because if we're going to have that, it has not been broadcast broadly, other than the fact that 2 months ago, I think, I set up a poll and collected some ideas on that poll for what GCC represented to various people. And that was also going to be something that I was hoping would focus the conversation. So if we have it here, this could be viewed as a precursor to that conversation that would be at the 2-year anniversary. Or we could eventually not have much interest in that 2-year anniversary conversation, in which case this might just be it. Doug could choose to do differently tomorrow. I don't strongly influence that, but that's also something that might happen. So I just want to bring that to the table and see what you guys were thinking. Over.
Yeah, I'm thinking that probably, since it involves the whole group, it's something that maybe could be discussed on tomorrow. If you're talking about doing a barn raising 2-year anniversary, that's a different issue. So yeah, if it's a GCC one, then yeah.
It's a GCC. Barn raising also hasn't been going for 2 years yet.
Yeah, okay. And so for the off and on, it got deep dived by the deep dives. As far as the name, that's an interesting thing to get that kind of right. Global Challenges Collaboration, or Collaboration Challenges, or whatever, GCC, the original name. I'm thinking that collaboration and the challenges are implicit. I think global conversations is what we're doing, GC. So if you want 2 C's, that's fine. I don't know. But yeah, I'm just thinking the conversations are kind of I think specializing in having quality conversations is something I feel we strive for. That's one of the things that keeps me interested in this group, because I can respect the fact that people will be respectable for the most part. And it doesn't fly off the wheels as easily as having, coffee shop conversations where people are less committed to following an idea through. So having long-winded ideas and being able to speak them and have people understand is a satisfying thing. And overall, I think the other C could be coexistence, because I think, that's really taken root as a priority, and to realize when things can be coexistent and when they can't be. There's some ideas that just cannot coexist, and people trying to smooth that over doesn't make it any easier. So I think having difficult conversations about, what is the global conversation and how do we coexist? How do we find out, what the quote unquote better is, and how we can structure our conversations so that what I would like to see is each person kind of have their specialty or their thing that they want to do. And instead of meandering everywhere's, sort of lay down some tracks. I think people who already do that, it's quite apparent. They're involved in certain initiatives already, where some of us are just more generalists and we'll talk about most anything. So I think even in the generalist form, we should try to be more focused on what it is we're doing, even if it just ends up writing a book about the topic, like to encourage each other to follow through that trail of thought more deeply, as opposed to just platitudes. I think it's important. And I think that may also encourage to get some more global participation, as opposed to just, the trend that we've had. It's starting to grow. I'm starting to see new faces from new countries. And as an example, I'm looking into the Kashmir thing right now, and with India and Pakistan, and learning about the different standpoints, and it's quite a complicated thing. There's a lot of lessons within that. But how could you make a map around that so you could have a conversation without just arguing? That would be like one example. There's a lot of different topics. I don't know if that would be the one that I would pick, but it would definitely be something that I would want to highlight, focus, and put out there, like an idea that could be, picked up again and move forward. So maybe if it's more like a gardening idea, where you might have a select certain rows of topics that are dear to you, and you're willing to engage in a group collaborating type of way to move those ideas forward. I think that's always kind of been in the back of my mind, what the app is that I would build that would help facilitate that. So I'm getting some clearer ideas how I might do that, and maybe I'll introduce some of those ideas as we go along. But yeah, that's kind of the thread that I'm looking at, ways to be more focused and concise, defining the terms around the topic that is near and dear to you, so that you can be more effective in that topic, and people can know, hey, well, we should talk to so-and-so about that because that's their thing. For example, I know with Sam, anything to do with Doug Engelbart is a good topic. With Glenn, superstructure. Josh is heavily into science topics. He's kind of a generalist that way. He knows a lot of different things. We share a lot of links. Jazz is kind of into more of this meditative stuff is one of the things I've got from him, and deeper thinking in that way. Some things I wouldn't really consider otherwise. Alex is into people joining together in a network of common minds to move things together, to have affect political pressures and things, maybe, I don't know. And David, just meeting David, what I know about his initiative from, I think his last talk really introduced a lot of things that he's passionate about and working with people. And an interesting thing he said that I remember is that he hasn't touched money in quite a while. So he's definitely living a world of purpose-driven life for sure. And I think, Josh is kind of off-grid too that way, which is very interesting to have people with that lived experience to speak to. So anyway, people staying within their specialties and promoting those things, I think could help a lot. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
So thanks, Colin. So it is a meta comment. I'm going to keep this going until you guys get tired of it. I've added some cards to the board. I've added the card called Networking Members to our Successes list. I've added Scaling the Conversation card to our Unsuccessful list. I've added a card called Keep These Conversations Going to our Continue Doing list. I've added More Focus to our Start Doing list. I've added How to Have Conversations Around Global, Sensitive, Confrontational, At-Risk, and Incendiary Situations to our Not Yet Understand list. And those were what I kind of mined out of your long monologue there, Colin. So just trying to let people know if you're in the board or not. That's what's happening to the board. Okay. Yeah, hey, Colin, since this is being recorded, maybe not forever, but would you be willing to even show your video just so people can see who you are if they're actually watching this later on?
Actually, I don't have any video hooked up right now, to be honest.
Okay.
All right. I could dial in through my phone, but then I'd have to comb my hair.
I didn't comb my hair today. Come on, what makes you think?
Yeah, but you're naturally beautiful.
Yeah, right.
I couldn't log into Trello because I've got 3 different Google accounts, and it's asking me which one I want to use. So I've forgotten which one I used when I joined Trello.
Well, go to Trello and see. Well, do you have your browser set to remember passwords? Anyway, that's a situation I know you're well equipped to handle, Alex. Okay, so hey, Dave, welcome. We see Dave 3.0, 3.1, who knows? Okay. Dave Gray, I think, Dave Middlemas, and now we have two Davids in this group. So I think people are getting tired of hearing my voice. Would someone here like to recap what we're doing for Dave Gray? So I don't have to do it. Just to get another voice in the flow.
I just wanted to point out, I really loved what Colin said, and he also brought emphasis on the unique skills that different people have bring, and to emphasize this is also maybe I really love that. It ties in with this whole idea of appreciation, and it's maybe something that's really worth expanding on. Concerning recap, I mean, it's now on Monday the 2-year anniversary of this group, GCC. So we've been talking about whether to have a special anniversary conversation, and kind of having a trial of it perhaps today, or at least touching on some of those themes, but then possibly it could also be on Sunday, tomorrow, if Doug wants it, or a special conversation on Monday is also a possibility that could be announced. So that's also been mentioned, and it's been mentioned also that Sam created a Trello board where a special Trello board with the how-to for this board, successes, unsuccessful, and continue doing, stop doing, start doing, not yet understand, and to do backlog roadmap, which, as I understood it, it's then this Trello board is a sort of meta board for the conversations themselves. And and another thing that was mentioned was ideas of changing GCC name to Global Collaboration Conversation or Global Coexistence Conversation, for example. So it's just some ideas, but clearly the conversations are very central to it, and trying to find better ways of having conversations about complex issues in a civilized way. Yeah, I think that's some of the themes just to get you up to date.
Thank you, Glenn. I really appreciate that. I put the link to the new Trello board in there so Dave Gray and others who joined late can actually see it. And also, until it begins to be obvious to everyone, this is the first session where we're going to announce that we will record and share publicly on YouTube. All the other previous sessions have been recorded but shared as unlisted. So that was something that we proposed doing kind of as an experiment in last Saturday's session. Okay, so anyone with a strong objection to that can either express it or can vote with your feet, but that would be what we were trying to do this time. Or vote with your fingers, I guess. Vote with your mouse. Okay, thank you. So if you have clicked on that Trello link, you'll see that out of the existing conversation, the past conversation from today, a number of cards have already been created. So just want to let you know, you are all free to create cards here. This is a read-write shared repository. I have no more privileges than any of the rest of you for card creation and card managing. So just want to encourage that. And if there's new lists, if these lists don't work for you and you want a different list or a different list title, we can discuss as well, okay? All right. I want to also say at some point for people watching this anew, we should probably introduce and give a little bit of history around GCC, but I want to at least welcome Christopher also to this group. And Christopher, I don't know how much of the introduction that Glenn gave about how we're structuring today's conversation you caught, but just hopefully in 10 seconds or less. Number one, we're trying to work with a proposed structure for how we have the 2-year anniversary conversation for GCC. And out of that, there's been some consideration of whether or not GCC itself as a name might suitably undergo some evolution. So the word conversation has been introduced. The word coexistence has been introduced. The word collaboration is being questioned. So those are the points that have been made. And if you click on the link I think this link is now appearing too often here, but some of you may not have seen the previous instances of it. If you click on that link, you'll see some of the cards that have been created out of the conversation to date. I am very curious to hear from Jaswinder since he's been entirely too quiet this entire session. Over.
I don't particularly have anything to say at this stage. We discussed a fair amount of this last week. And obviously going live was one of the things that we really wanted to put forward. And the rest of the stuff is how we present ourselves, the name change, etc. What we're going to be doing and how we're going to be doing that is the main meat of our meetings. We've had a lot of ideas. We've never really taken anything up. Christopher's turned up here, although he should have been here the week before. And he has a specific item that he would probably want to discuss. So yes, we're going into the third year and we want to be a little bit more concrete. I'm waiting to see which way we go. I'm happy either way. As you may be aware, I've done 3 sessions now on Tammy's slot. I'm very happy with those. I'm quite willing to do more, and I would like those ideas to spread as well. Probably the whole world over. So I'm very happy with the way things are going. We're maturing quite well. I'm complete.
Josh?
Was anybody on Thursday or Fridays? I was just curious to know what the memes or what was being talked about on Thursday and Friday, so that could be carried over to today. If anyone was on Thursday or Friday's call, I would love to know. Anyone here? I was traveling, so I wasn't able to make it.
Thursday and Friday gone, or the one previous, or the one previous?
1 and 2 days from now, I'm hearing.
Yeah, yesterday and the day before.
The day before was Dougie's slot. We discussed a number of items in Dougie's slot. So it didn't touch on any of the items we're discussing today. I believe
Okay.
Dave turned up. A lot of the program, Dave Gray, that is. Nice to see your name up there, Dave. And good afternoon to you. Dougie, it turns out, is a fan of Dave Gray on his Luminal book. And there were other items discussed. So most of the program went that way. I think I had a few things to say. Friday, we did an appraisal of the various methods of connecting with the divine. Alex and I had a very long session on that one. We had, I think we have a personality clash, which tends to come through. And I get the feeling Alex is not really interested in doing any of it, but he turns up just to make his point of view. And he does like to prolong things. Although I think 2 people left the meeting because of our little difference of opinion. And one of whom has turned up today, which is good. And I'm probably going to follow him all the way to Thailand.
Based on expressions, I'm guessing it's David Middlemas.
Yeah. Via cyberspace. I've learned in those 3 sessions that I've done in the last 3 weeks, I've learned a tremendous amount, and I think it's added a booster to my cognitive ability. And I'm still coming to terms with that. Most of today I've been I haven't been here. I've been somewhere else. So all in all, the overall situation, I'm very happy with, very glad we're going in the direction we're going in. And more people who come on board, the better. Is there anything in particular you wanted to know, Josh?
Yeah, mostly the last conversation we were on with barn raising, I think it was barn raising, and then it carried over to Sunday's meeting last week, was changing the name. And I think Doug had mentioned global conversation communities. We talked about, like you said, Sam, getting the collaboration out of that word. So I'm just waiting for the name so I know what we're doing. Like Colin said, like, what's the context? I am on the Trello board. I have the Trello here.
Yeah.
But for me, Trello, it's a board with another board with not a description. So I get confused on Trello because when I click on adopt to learning mindset, it says nothing here. So it just says adopt to learning mindset. There's no description of what that means exactly or action to take. So I don't do any action.
You turned up a little late. Sam actually explained what a learning mindset is.
Yeah, but if someone turns up late, there should be a description of his description of what he explained on there, and an activity and details and who's involved, and a checklist and a due date and an attachment, a cover, a label.
So
without any of those things.
Base camp project, do you expect all of that on the first hour, Joshua?
Yeah, yes, I do. When there's a to-do list, there's a to-do description, and then there's a person that's doing it, and it's assigned to that person. It's the same thing as Trello. So if there's
would
not
that be something that you are coming in with as an assumption, or is that something you're open to discussing?
I'm saying if there's an action card, cool. These aren't action cards. These are just ideas written in Trello. It could have been written in
Trello said they were action cards, Joshua.
Trello did.
Suggestion card.
We could
put it this way, when you click on
I did add
it says
something there.
activity, suggested, join, members, label, checklist, due date. That's what Trello says. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying attachment,
Josh,
cover, due date.
Did you see the card? I wrote a description on one of the cards, which
one? I'll look.
Just a moment.
So I'm being triggered right now. Let me say that my reaction to what Joshua just said was kind of a overreaction to the fact that we're trying something new and that he has much expectation on it.
I don't mean to,
you're interrupting.
Jim, I don't mean to cheat.
So I'm not
I just want to know
expression yet, because I've seen this happen between you and me many times.
It's already on Trello.
Yes.
The
So
suggestion
I'm seeing that the suggestion gets met by you with a lot of assumptions and a lot of expectations, and that's something that comes up very often between you.
I'm just going to turn it off, and when I need to take action, someone will put an action for me or something. I'm just turning it off.
I put an action in there. Did you see it? I can copy it into the chat. Here, now it's in the chat. A general learning mindset can be assisted by meetings where we think together in flow with a lot of questions and short responses, moving forward and back so that the group follows a line of inquiry as one mind. I put that into one of the cards. That seems to be a more actionable description, and concerning the time to do it is obviously during the video conversations, so that shouldn't be necessary to mention. So I think it's pretty much, yeah, it's there's already something in there in that direction. Just wanted to throw that in, and it's all based on what we spoke about earlier, obviously. Yeah.
I just logged into Trello, and the first thing I saw on the left-hand side was a card that said learning frame mindset, learning mindset. If I'm in a learning mindset, I've got to read the rest of that card and follow up on those ideas because they were brilliant. And I can opt in, or I can do them at my own leisure and complete something, and then get a boost in my self-esteem because I've achieved a goal. and the progress is happening. We're moving things forward. Over.
I would be curious to hear what you think,
Did you
Josh,
add me
about
to
that.
that card? I'm just trying to get to that card and I can't click on the chat because it's on a different window and it doesn't link to the Trello. So
Yeah, the card is called Questioning and Thinking Together in Flow.
which board is that card on?
How to for this board.
How to. Done. And then did you add me on that card? Is there an action that you need me to take? Because I see there's no members on that card.
Members.
Wait.
Members?
Let me back up a little bit. We're trying something new. And you're expecting a lot of structure around these cards, which happens in real time. Where action on these cards right now for me is an attempt to capture what's happening in the conversation. It's not really intended yet to make the full 100% content of that card, clearly and explicit at the moment that you click on it, Joshua, because we're coming up with these things on the fly. So we're trying to capture the conversation as best we can. So they're right now just titles. You can see that some people like Glenn and Colin and others have begun putting descriptions in those cards as we have this conversation. So some of that's being fleshed out. But for you to so strongly register an opinion that the card is incomplete because you don't see any detail there because you just clicked on it and therefore we're not really using this right, that just rubs me a little bit raw. And I think that that's a very...
Whoa.
Wait,
Whoa, you're saying
I'm not finished yet, Josh. I'm saying
when
that,
you're finished, let me know because I'll speak.
I will, because I'm saying that this happens between you and me quite often. And I want to address it if it's a block in me, but I also want to just be honest about the fact that I experienced this from you and that your opinions, your criticism of the practices here that are being proposed are, in my opinion, a bit premature. And I'm trying to be open to that and trying to express it openly and honestly with my reaction here. Okay, over.
Thank you, Sam. And I'm just trying to understand the use of Trello. So that helps me to explain what you're doing. You're taking notes during a conversation, taking our focus away from the conversation over to Trello so we can keep these notes so they continue past the conversation.
There's no requirement here for you to go to Trello. These are my attempts to capture what's happening here. It is your choice whether you stay in this conversation or whether you go to Trello. So don't be, putting on me any defocusing distraction that you might experience. Okay, that's your choice. Please.
Wait, I find that interesting. I'm just going to be straight up with you. It's funny that you say, yeah, go there if you want to, but I just posted it 4 times. I posted in the chat, then I posted in the chat again, then I posted on GCC admin.
As
so
a
I'm just trying to be
for those who want to follow along, not as a requirement.
Got it.
And this is crucial. Is the best time is perhaps short after conversation to go there. I mean, it's probably not optimal to spend too much time in the teleboard when we're in conversation. Perhaps one person could do it who takes that role, but if we do it straight afterwards, that can be a good time. Yeah. Josh.
Yeah, thank you. And if you don't mind, Sam, what I was trying to say earlier is when I go to Trello, the way I understand of taking Trello's tutorial on how to use Trello is it's organized by boards. Each board has a card, and each card has members to that card. Is that the way you want to use it, or are you using it differently, Sam? I want to be respectful.
Okay. This can be a short answer. This can be a long answer. The short answer is yes, I would like to use it effectively using the facilities that Trello makes available. Right now, I am just trying to use it as a capturing repository because I'm trying to make sure that these ideas don't get lost. Now, many times we have these conversations in GCC, and sometimes notes don't get taken in the chat window, and then we never have anything that's either searchable or linkable or referenceable. So I'm trying to suggest other mechanisms, and many others have been suggested. You've suggested Basecamp, you've suggested WordPress. I've had other things like mind mapping tools. We've had,
I suggested one tool, Otter. I was never heard of Otter. That's the only tool I've ever
with
suggested.
Basecamp. So there's been at least two. Okay.
No. Basecamp is not. So that's where I've never been heard or never been able to communicate to you is to keep notes on a conversation so they don't get lost for a later time. I suggested Otter.
Nice.
And I've been suggesting that for 6 months. For activities and actions to be taken in a group collaboration, I suggested Basecamp. To share it with the world, I suggested
I'm also
WordPress.
getting here a little bit of a meta conversation here, which is you and I are now into kind of a very detailed disagreement, which I hope we're doing positively. I'm not yet clear that we are. But I'm wondering how this is actually landing with everybody else because
Yeah, I don't like it.
yeah.
But I think it's valuable at the same time because the meta part of it is very valuable. So if we can acknowledge without being frustrated, I think the goals are being made. What I see is focus. What is it you want to do? Then the tools fall into place as you can afford to use them. And it gives you value because you're actually communicating. I really liked, not to get into the conversation, the signaling in Basecamp, but I just don't think the people were ready to commit to use these kinds of things. So it's a committal type thing. As a side note, Sam, I was wondering if it's possible for you to show all of the squares, even if the people aren't present. That's typically the way I've seen it done on the internet, so that the person does feel present, because I do have an icon, which you might be able to see while I'm speaking. And that'll let people who are watching in public know that there's other people there.
Wait, what what are you saying?
Well, for example, when somebody turns their video off, they lose their square.
Right.
They probably shouldn't. You should probably show the non-camera participants. And I think I've broken up the conversation. How you doing, Christopher? Haven't seen you for a couple of weeks. How's it going?
I'm doing fine, and I'm actually enjoying the conversation right now. Trying to learn a lot. It's been my busy time, as every group member is aware. I'm building at the site, at the institute site, and also conducting lecture sessions with the students. So it's quite been a busy time, but I'm learning a lot from the GCC.
Did you get any value out of the post that I shared with the links?
Oh yes. I've been trying to make some follow-ups and communicating with some people that are also in the link.
I take your participation in the barn raising as a very focused effort, as I find David Middlemiss also has a very focused effort. I think it was mentioned, what's a generalist? And I think that's, up for discussion, how general somebody becomes, or multi-focused, I guess you could call it. So I would like to try to not stereotype people or what's the right word? Try to slot you into a certain topic, but at the same time, I think it could be very valuable if we suggested topics that we wanted to shepherd. So and one of the things I do is I like to build maps around those things, but they're only valuable when you're trying to scope out what it is you're, the higher level things and trying to get your bearings on what that person's doing. After that, I see more valuable types of communication methods, and that's kind of come up with the topic of all the different tools. And Trello right now is being used to kind of do that. So if each person could have their own card on Trello, and they could state like their top 2 interests and their most favorite communication style, what tools you like to use, how you like to do your signaling, that might be 2 of the most introductory, valuable things that we could reach out. And last time we talked, Christopher, I said we don't have a channel, so I'll just throw the stuff in a Facebook post. So, and grow
Yeah.
from there. Yeah. So anyway, today I'm kind of trying to focus on what we can do to focus. So it's a meta day.
Exactly. Exactly. If, through my observation in our discussion, in our conversations, I've looked at it that way. If this is why even before coming to this meeting today, I asked the Jas and the Sam that what is the topic of in our conversation. So Sam was trying to give me an highlight on trying to do some kind of evaluation on the 2 years and see where we are and where we are going. I think for me, it will be very, very helpful if we could look at a topic and say, okay, this is what we want to discuss, and what will be the focus of our discussion? What do we want to achieve after discussion? Yes, we are more of conversation, but I believe it's everything that has happened tangibly, or everything that people have touched, they have begun by a conversation somewhere. Yeah, I'll give you a simple example of some things that have happened spiritually. Yes, I know we've got different faiths here, but I will say before certain things were made, people sat and talked about how they are going to be made and when they will be made. Yeah, so I believe having a focus of discussion would help us so much and achieve a lot. And I'm in Africa, and where we want to see, we're so much in a hurry to see things happen. And the knowledge that comes from this conversation, I'm taking it that, okay, what am I going to do with this knowledge so that tomorrow I can see a physical picture? Over.
Yeah, very interesting. And one of the things I remember much about our last conversation is how you brought together people with different worldviews, you could say, from even villages that were close together, and let them realize if they focused on the main objective, then they could put some of their personal differences to the side to try to coexist and do things better. And I suggested that, there's a big narrative there. There's a good story there. And I think overall, that's kind of what I feel like is emerging, is the environment that people are in, the challenges that they're up against, and how do I realize your situation, and how do you realize my situation, so that, we're not talking past each other and our terms are better defined within, what's actually happening. So I take a lot of things for granted being in Canada. I don't worry too much about corruption and these kinds of things. And as another note of another example is, I've been looking into the Kashmir conflict between India and Pakistan, and there's like one of the longest, hardest type of coexistence things. How could they? That's what their goal is, and and how can we kind of take on that kind of a mindset without having the conflict, but the need to really reach out and understand if coexistence is even possible within certain topics that we want to shepherd, so that we're not just pretending that coexistence is happening and
yes,
things aren't in the way.
You're very right, Corey. And I'll just give also another example is that, as we talk of coexistence, let's just pick corruption. Corruption is spoken almost in every country on this earth. But the sources, the causes of that corruption differs from each country context. For example, I'll give in my country, corruption is just caused by one reason, which is poverty. Now, those that have got, the powers, or they have an opportunity to suppress others, they will actually lie on corruption. Now, So we may understand that the only way, if we are to coexist, is looking at how we can stem out the causes of this corruption, which is poverty, through these conversations. Because on this, on GCC, we've got a lot of people with different abilities and different knowledge and experience that would contribute just through conversation. They will talk about breaking one cycle of poverty. For example, if it's economic, we have muscles that would just bring up a conversation on how we can break the economic poverty cycle. Others would talk about breaking the social poverty, you know, physical poverty, all those mental poverty. Yeah, so this conversation would really need people like me. Thank you.
Hey, this is a group conversation dynamic that I just wanted to point out, is that if there becomes an extended two-way interaction that goes ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, ping pong for an extended, I think we are actually in a mode that doesn't actually leverage most of the rest of us. I think there definitely are places to have these extended one-on-ones, but I would urge us all to be sensitive to whether or not that's happening, and whether or not it might be appropriate to take into a separate forum, or whether we want to ask the group, hey, is this something we really want to focus a lot of time on as a group? I just bring that up, not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that this is one thing that might be something we could discuss and or agree on. Welcome, Les. And as moderator, I want to at least exercise a moderation responsibility here and say, one of my first questions, my question number 3, was to whether or not we can have this 2-year conversation about GCC. Now, today we actually have 4 people who are relatively new, at least 4 people relatively new to GCC. So I'm recommending that we not actually do that GCC retrospective today. Just want to close the loop on that one. I do want to make sure, though, that I'm welcoming everybody to this particular board where I'm taking notes and some of the rest of you are also taking notes. And at the risk of doing this too often, I'm going to put it in here again. Ooh, actually, so no, before I do that, let me also say, one of the things I heard in Colin's discussion with someone else is whether or not we want to establish what I interpreted as certain behaviors within our participation here as GCC, both as just regular members and as well as conversationalists in these conversations. So I posted a Google Docs link to a inventory of behaviors that some of us have opted into, just so that we can actually understand that we're not all in agreement about certain behaviors. Like, not all of us believe that it's okay to interrupt, you know, not all of us believe we should not interrupt. And so there's those kinds of fundamental things that we tried to be very explicit about in that particular spreadsheet. I urge each of you to create a column for yourself and comment your embrace or rejection of any of those practices, or add new practices to them, because I think we all learn when we do this. That's my meta comment. I'm going to now turn it back to the floor. Alex, you had your finger up. Over.
You wanted to mention the collaboration reason why we're here. Without getting personally involved with each other's arguments, we can collaborate in barn raising to get the effect we need for this global collaboration happening and becoming more widespread. Now, I'm interested in what Jase Winter was talking about from yesterday, because that wasn't recorded, but that's a matter for others who did see it to comment. So I felt a little bit insulted and triggered. But besides that, I think we're moving on, and it's great to have so many people interested in the barn raising.
Okay. Let me at least solicit some volunteers. Does anybody want to recap, number 1, what GCC is, number 2, what barn raising is, number 3, what we've done, you know, to date for the last 2 years? Because if you don't step forward, then I will do it as a default. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Okay, let me do that since this is going to be shared publicly. Okay, and we're an hour into this, so those who are viewing it anew may not have had the patience to stick around this long. But anyway, here it is. So GCC stands for the Global Challenges Collaboration Group in Facebook. And that's one of the things that it means. But there was a thing called the Global Challenges Foundation, I believe located in Sweden, that issued a request for proposal, an RFP, in April of 2017. The submission deadline was September 30th of 2017. And so a number of people decided to create a response to it. The challenge, the request was, what would you come up with? What would you propose that would actually be a new global governance model that we should explore or impose or adopt or embrace so that we can bring about a better world, society, communication, civilization, nation, all these sort of things. Okay? So various people, and among them, and I apologize if I start naming them, I'm going to forget somebody, but Aaron Perlmutter, Andrew Charlton, various others, Anna, somebody else, and Tammy Lee Meyer was the one who actually invited me to the group. And because of various commitments, various people stayed, various people left. So at the end, the 2 people on the day of submission that actually were working at the very last minute to do those was Tammy and myself. And then we had some edits from various other people like Anna and Belina. And again, like I say, I apologize because I'm not going to remember everybody. So this coming Monday is the 2-year anniversary of that submission. Our proposal was to try and see how we could have conversations reveal what each person brings and how to co-create what each person brings into something greater or something different or something better so that we could actually evolve this grassroots. And we decided to have these conversations regardless of whether we got the award or not. Obviously, we didn't get the award. I think it was awarded to probably a dozen other submitters. But we were not one of the winners, but we said, regardless, we're just going to continue this. So we started with a once a week. Actually, it was more frequent than that. But pretty soon it became structured as Thursdays was kind of a way to bring any idea to a conversation. It's called Thursday Open Space. Friday was a chance to experiment with something new. And so Tammy had been the moderator for both of those for quite a long time. And then Saturdays evolved into something called barn raising, which is what is it that we really want to co-create? How do we really want to collaborate here? What is it we're trying to build? Where is it we're trying to go? What does a barn look like? How do we, get the nails and foundation set up, all that sort of thing. Sundays is called unblocking. In other words, what's keeping us from doing all this stuff? Now, we've always been very open to other threads being set up, but so I'm the moderator of Saturdays. Doug Breitbart is the moderator of Sundays, and I record Saturdays and Sundays and post them to YouTube. Tammy used to run Thursdays and Fridays, and she used to post them to YouTube. Now I believe Doug does it, but he says he's kind of a little bit backed up, so he hasn't been posting them as readily as these sessions on Saturdays and Sundays. So to date, these sessions have been posted unlisted. This is the first session that we decided that we would post publicly. And so that's why we're taking this time to introduce GCC a bit and the structure of GCC. It's also worthwhile noting that the group in Facebook called GCC has somewhere around 1,300 members. And that's astonishing to me because I don't even know how we got 1,300 members, because I think only about a dozen or two are actually active on these conversations. But we do see time to time, other names pop up in comments on posts in the group and others. It also should be noted that this group is kind of a sister group or associated with various other groups in Facebook. I think there's something called the Ecology of Systems Thinking, various other systems thinking and systems science kinds of groups in Facebook are associated. There's also Actually, again, if I start itemizing them, there's various that I'm going to forget. But anyway, if you're on the Facebook group, you're going to see a number of those cross-linked members from time to time. So we each are here as members in this GCC, and I'm going to give you my view. Okay, my view of what GCC is it's a village square. It's a town square. People show up. People, are strolling around. People encounter each other. They say hi. They, exchange ideas with each other. They probably move on to the next conversation. Okay. The word collaboration in GCC in the original form, I think, implies and lets people expect a bit more. And while some of us may want that, I don't think that's what we have today. So there is binary collaboration going on. Like, for example, a couple people are producing books, a couple of people are doing startups, so sponsoring entrepreneurs in Africa, et cetera, et cetera. But as a formal entity, GCC does not exist. There are, subgroups and various clumps of individuals doing that sort of thing. And while some of us do think that we're all more or less working towards the same objective, to me, that's not even yet clear. So that's my quick recap. Any more detail you can ask me about, but it might actually take a bit more time. So let me turn it back to the group, given that that's my recall of what GCC is for now. And those of you that have been around, Joshua, Alex, Glenn, Jaswinder, please feel free to add some flavor or color to this.
Okay, yeah, I really like that recap. Yeah, I also see it a bit as a sort of a town square. There's sort of the open conversation space with certain regular meetings and semi-structured. Often it can be meandering and go in various directions, and that can be pretty interesting. And that is associated with also these other groups, and I believe there's also other groups. I've heard of a few that have similar sort of video meetings, and then out of that there can be various specific collaborations between smaller teams who want to do things, and some are involved in that, and some mostly show up for the conversations. That's really been what I've been doing for a while, but I'm also working on the ideas and the mapping of the ideas from the conversations, even though that I don't even know if you could call it work, but it's a lot of it's in the mind, but it's quite interesting to look at some of the emergent themes that have come up as well. For example, permaculture and eco-villages seems to be one of those ideas, or it's not just an idea, but a field of interest, one could say, that everyone seems to be drawn towards in various ways. That there's this model that has formed of these local communities around the world who live in a sustainable, regenerative way, and where there's at the same time a global virtual connection layer between them and a learning network. So I feel that the GCC so far has been mostly a learning network, or it played that function. Let's say at least these video conversations have played the function of expanding the mind of the participants and sharing knowledge, and at the same time obviously get to know other people and oneself. So that is a preparation for various possible collaborations between specific teams, and that has happened many times, and it's, you know, that's sort of the structure of the whole thing. It's so it's like this it's really totally open space, even though there are, you know, certain behaviors that I think I will also mention this. There is a general agreement that I see about civility and respect, what Colin mentioned, and a wish to be able to have conversations also on really challenging, difficult topics, which usually are not conducted like that, and try to take that to a new level. So, for example, when someone gets triggered or sort of like has a negative reaction, there seems to be a mentality that that's an opportunity to grow. And that's also one of the emergent themes that, yeah, there's many others. I actually made a little recording last week when I was walking in the woods about emergent themes in the field, I think I called it. And it's related to this, but yeah, I don't have time to go into all of that now, but yeah, I think that, so it's many things going on. Like it's sort of messy in a way, but it's also, it follows its own structure somehow. Yeah.
There was a big opportunity for people to develop their regional hub if they're so inclined. It's a bit like a honeypot for global green warriors who are entrepreneurial in spirit and understand how to make a web page. You write a bit of HTML. You know, that's the secret ingredient, I think. Over the source.
I've sort of been thinking, this platform is an exceptionally viable platform and has some great sort of potentiality. And I was thinking that if we could somehow start with listing skills, have a skills list somewhere, and we can have a skill sharing section. So we could, if anything interests us, we could maybe sort of start to have separate conversations where we chat about the things that interest us. And like, my idea is we have, there's 10,000 eco-villages from 2 to 200, 400 people in Global Eco-Villages Network. There's 30,000 separate entities in other eco-village networks. There are something like 90,000 unregistered completely. Separately from that, then there are indigenous tribes and indigenous peoples. So if a conglomerate can work to suppress and destroy the environment as some form of consumerist creature of greed, and 85% of people are unhappy with the jobs that they're in, surely if we can create a nodal system where villages or households even run like an eco-village or like a permaculture eco-village, and we use some form of empowerment. So basically, we would have to set rules for ourselves. We would have to set responsibilities. We would have to create a worldview that we all agree on and set up like an eco-village, like an entity or an organism ourselves. We could then start to look at bringing in monetary value. We could think about bringing in structures to barter, or if we look at various different aspects of flow rather than money, like our spiritual values, our friendships. We could have something like a time exchange, or we could start focusing on projects to empower them to do that themselves. So if you look at the way that an eco-village springs up, it tends to have a spiritual system, which is non-denominational and anyone can join into, and they try to value everybody's holidays, etc., and try to value everything about them. Basically, you then set up a worldview. Sorry, Josh. Josh, you're muted.
Yeah, there we go. Sorry, I couldn't unmute. I was trying to use the chat. I was just saying goodbye. David, I love you. I'm just letting you know before you waste your breath, we've had this conversation about 150 times, just so you know, this exact conversation. Okay. Let's set up an entity. Let's work like an eco-village. Let's barter. Let's everything you just said, I've had that conversation for a year and a half.
Right.
I'm not leaving that. I have to hear my mom, but I'm just letting you know that this isn't a new conversation.
And together with this conversation, that's been happening in real life.
Yes.
Yes.
So keep doing it. I'm saying goodbye. I'm not trying to interrupt or interject or anything except for I love barn raising. Thank you, Sam, and thank you. I don't mean to rub you the wrong way. I just want to do right by the group.
Let's talk again.
That's my intention.
I need to do that.
Yes, and David, please bring your new energy into this conversation because it needs to be happening again. So thank you guys, and good to see you, Dave. And,
thanks,
good to see you. Cheers. Much love to you guys.
Later, Joshua.
So sorry, guys. So basically, at the moment, we have an eco-village with 2 residents, lots of dogs, chickens, and ducks. We have a village that we are members in. My partner is about to become one of the village leaders, and we associate very closely with them. And on our last eco-village design education course, we did a remit in the village for 2 days and 1 night to find out what their needs and what their aspirations were. And we ascertained that the village wanted to maintain its spiritual aspect, also open to new spirituality coming in, wanted to maintain its social aspect and indigeneity. We're a very sort of unique space in Thailand because we have Myanmar, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, variations of borders around us. So culturally, they've adopted pretty much all of those cultures. So what we're hoping to do is create a cooperative. There are 2 cooperatives running similarly, spinning in indigenous silks, indigenous cloths. We were thinking of a friend of mine's a designer in the Philippines. He's tempted to come over and start designing beautiful fabrics, beautiful clothes from these cloths. But that's the start of it. I have other friends that are into plant medicine. One guy's a chemist, so we go into natural medicines. We're documenting the medicinal contents of the plants. We are growing the plants. So there's masses of structure for actually keeping a village system, not having to ship factories in and destroy everything, but turning it to a completely permaculture, zero waste, zero carbon village. We're thinking about getting our own power supply, our own solar panels, but we're not the only one. There's eco-villages across the world doing this. Just the fact of the matter is nobody's connected them together, connected a space where they can share the knowledge freely, where they can empower each other. And this space would be perfect for that. If we started using this to empower each other, if we set roles, if we set ideals and focused on one project that could roll out and change various different spaces. Sorry.
So David, I would embrace that. Why don't you, I would nominate you, set up another conversation, either on the existing day or on Monday, Tuesdays, or Wednesdays, one of the 3 days that are open, Why don't you say, hey, we're going to have one on eco-villages slash permaculture slash, zero carbon slash, clean energy, and say that's the focus, okay? I want to also place that in context because we're always open. Anybody can take the initiative to do this. These 4 conversations that happen, they're not the only ones that GCC allows. There's no one here to say yes or no to any of them. I'm here to say yes as an individual, okay? So I've always been encouraging anybody, if somebody wants to start up a thread on WordPress or a thread on carbon or a thread on food or a thread on forestation, let's do it. I would say, though, that what we're trying to do here in barn raising, while initially focused on what we can do globally, we're still struggling with steps 0 and 0.5 of that, which is how do we make agreements? How do we even keep from triggering each other? How do we bring ourselves without all the baggage from the past entering into these conversations? I showed you an example of that in the call today, okay? So there's a lot of things about communication, about what other people might call NVC, or other people might call personal presence, or other people might call growth or personal success or enlightenment, all those words that get bandied about. But those are things which, if we don't address, if we're not clear about, always end up costing collaboration late in the stage of those attempts. But anyway, we're trying to understand those. We're trying to understand, why do teams fall apart? Why don't teams actually scale? Why do they only last for a little while? And typically the things that come up are personal things, ego, recognition, being heard, being rewarded, those things that end up putting a kibosh on things. So anyway, while I am very respectful and very knowledgeable and acknowledge that, all of these things that you're talking about need to be done, whether it's about food or forestation or, eco-villaging, there definitely needs to be people doing that. I'm personally focused on what it is that keeps successful collaboration from scaling. And right now, the word for that I'm using is collaborology. And so that's at a meta level, because I know that right now I don't have that domain expertise in any of these 16 or 17 or 18 global phenomena that could actually save the world. But this is one that actually is curious to me. So this is where my focus goes. And I want to support you and everybody else in saying, let's establish those forums. And if you think GCC is a great place to set that up and invite people, let's do it. Do it on Wednesday, do it on Tuesday, do it on Monday, do it at a different time of day if you like, but do it. Let's
Or
all that encouragement.
or you could do it in some of the established days as well. For example, on Thursdays. But I just want to say that I think you're right that GCC is really perfect for as this kind of a support for these local initiatives and sustainable communities. And in a sense, I think that's what we're actually doing. And these local sustainable communities, if it's going to become a global organism, there has to be some kind of virtual layer which is very focused on the psychological aspects. So I think there's a close connection between this thing Sam just mentioned and the practical initiatives on the ground. They mutually support one another, and they could probably become far more harmonized as well. Yeah, Alex.
As you were speaking, I was having a vision of a bicycle wheel with the GCC in the center and the spokes going out to various initiatives that have sprouted from the GCC conversation. And then more coming out from that to the countries where there's other subgroups, different cultures doing permaculture, different initiatives happening in local areas all over the world. Now that could be virtualized into a 3D environment where you put on a helmet and you steer yourself around in this space like the Lawnmower Man did in the fiction movie, but that's possible these days. that can become a reality. Over.
I would also like to add that I think the thing that keeps communities together, if you look at Fintorn community, they have a goal, and that goal has evolved through time. And basically, they live in a patch of heaven. It's pretty cool. It works quite well. Now you've got Auroraville. If you go to Auroraville, it's a patch of heaven. Everyone seems to get on. Yes, underlying, you look, there are issues, but they're nowhere near as dramatic. In a permaculture space where there's abundance and no rivalry, where there's cooperation and people don't actually sort of, because basically you keep that focus. Every time you eat, you bless the food. People eat together. So basically, if we start with a common goal to create the most abundant spaces as near to a sort of heaven as we possibly can. And basically, as far as I'm concerned, the story where a guy wants to see heaven, wants to see hell, he goes to heaven. There's a huge plate of food with an abyss, and they all have long chopsticks. In heaven, they feed each other. Everywhere else is beautiful around there. It's just the fact that the food is in the center. And they go to hell, and nobody will feed each other. So they're living in paradise and don't see it because they're all starving. So if you look at consumerism, it's a little bit like hell. If you look at cooperation, rivalry, and abundance, where everything's free because it grows, it's a little bit like heaven. So just basically focus on trying to make things a little bit more like heaven. Look at the eco-villages that work. Start sharing that knowledge. Look at the villages that work, the households that work. Look at the people that are quite balanced and happy. Ask what they're doing. Look at Jas. You know, he's a happy guy. He knows what he's doing. All of us here seem to be quite happy guys, girls. We all seem to have an idea of what heaven is. So basically, if we want heaven for everybody else, we're a little bit less selfish. We're feeding everybody else with long chopsticks instead of saying, well, I want this and I'd like this. So ego turns to we go. Then we go turns to free go. And when everybody's free and we all freely go, we're in a happy space. There are templates that are working across the globe. If we can create an energy hub where this expands, instead of a place where we sell it off or hold it or whatever else, anyone can log in and look and check and whatever else and get information. If we literally start by logging our skills and logging what we'd like to share, what we'd like to learn, and then try to sort of create a mind map and match that up, that's a start. That's an idea. Over.
Okay, cool. I like that. And I tried to capture some of that in the board today. Being that normally our conversations go for 2 hours and we're probably within, 17 minutes of that. Let me, as my prerogative, I'm going to take a few seconds and share the state of the Trello board as it exists right now, okay? And that's an invitation, by the way. So by sharing this, I'm inviting each of us to do a checkout. And the checkout can be whatever you want it to be, but optionally, it could include a card that you would put in each of these lists. So let's say right now, can you all see my my board? Maybe it's, yeah, here we go. Maybe it's a little bit more readable now, okay? So off to the left, there's a few things about agreements and how we use the board. And then there are questions that I asked. What are the successes that GCC has achieved, okay? What are the things that we have not been successful doing? What should we continue doing? What should we stop doing? What should we start doing that we haven't been doing to date? What do we not yet understand? That's a big list. And then the stuff that we think we pretty much know we've got to do, but we haven't really done it yet. That's the backlog, okay? So I'm going to stop sharing now, but you can respond to any of this. I would encourage each of you to add cards to this, or to do your checkout in any other way you prefer. So anyway, that hopefully will take us to the top of the hour. Over.
Am I here? Okay, good. I come out of radio mode as a request from Sam. One of my behavioral things was to not appear in video unless I've been asked. So Sam asked, so I appeared. I think it could be valuable for this session as well. I really feel what David Middlemiss is saying, and as far as wanting to what is called, I guess, at GCC is make a sprout. And he says this would be a great place to grow these sprouts. And I also want to reiterate what Josh had said about this has been tried many times. And I think having focus is the problem. And if you already have a topic of, say, eco-culture, then you're already, narrowed down the list of things to do by a million. Where we can talk about anything we want to here. So you're going to start talking about your idea and what I would consider a garden, and then, the topic's going to change. So what I think happens, or could help, is that you lead your thing, and you steer that in the group, and don't expect everybody in the group to maintain your garden. So Alex was saying about having a VR representation of where we are. And as well, I think you mentioned as well, to visualize where we are and what we're actually doing, I think is very important. I tried to make some mind maps. You mentioned mind maps. So this stuff's been tried before. It's a matter of getting buy-in and participation from people who find it valuable. So even though people found the mind mapping valuable, they didn't participate. Sam's been through this with many tools. Request for comments, is a way that we want to try to keep ideas alive by consensus and move forward. Micro agreements, the COI, which is what is that again, Sam? Of intent?
It stands for Community of Impact, which is basically just 4 practices that you decide to embrace.
Can you
Right,
attach impact to innovation?
Well, there's so many of these ideas. So if you have one, you have to spearhead it, I think. So very much this is a great place to bring it. But where's the bulletin board for you to put your thing so it doesn't get confused with everybody else's? So I see right now we're like in a lobby, or whatever Sam said as well. And you also have your own meeting room where you can invite people in and conduct your meeting the way you want to with people that you align with. So I think just a simple visual of that to start with, that it's almost like you're going to a movie theater and people are going to be watching different movies, but we're all kind of out in the middle, buying popcorn, saying, wouldn't it be nice, to have a movie about this or go see a movie about that. So if you're the type of a director that wants to create a movie, then by all means, this is a good place to do that if we can find a way to keep the thing straight. And I do think having some visual representation of that. Trello is kind of an example of that today, with different lanes of ideas. And that's why I suggested the lane should have a person, like there should be a lane for a person. So David could have his and his top 3 things that he does. So that would be your initiation to what skills you have and what your interests are. And the collaboration could happen more naturally. But if people can't navigate the boards, then again, the tools get in the way. So I think if I could, from my experiences of being here and interested in different things, my thing is really how do we weave these conversations so that they don't get lost and they can be continued. And the problem I've had is that any tool that I want to use kind of breaks the conversation. So if you're not prepared to know what you want to say, if I do a screen share, I might throw you off. So I think preparation is a huge part of this, I've mentioned before, and being ready for what you're going to do so you don't get thrown off. And I thought about this a little bit more. Ode to Glenn, I went for a walk and did some did some thinking. And I think the first meeting should be without the tool, to define the terms a bit, have that open conversation. And then the more you get into the conversation, bring the tool into it so that it's familiar. And if you're going to use a tool, everybody involved has to be aware of the tool, know how to navigate the tool, and feel like they can contribute through the tool, whatever that tool is. And it could just be, a mind map's like a picture, or, the theater ideas, you have a map of the town and here's where the theater is. And then you go into the theater and they have a map of, theater 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, humans are very much into following maps. So how do we make that map to keep our intentions straight so that we don't get lost in the crowd of conversations? And then how do we respect these conversations without talking past each other? That's knowing each other's environment. And it takes time. And it's a worthwhile effort. And I'll just end with that. Thank you.
I'll do a little check out, following up on that. With what Colin shared, the word leadership came to my mind. It's been something I've been very interested in a long time, and it does really seem that there is a model that has emerged organically, and these conversations, they are an example of the model, and they also reflect back on it from various angles. And it's related to this question of agreements. And the model is basically that if one person has a project or a passion or an insight they really feel is important, they can then start an initiative and are encouraged to start an initiative. And then the others, or some of the others, their role is then to be attentive to it and have an open mind, and possibly also be willing to do an experiment, like the last few Fridays. I mean, I only attended one of them, but it seemed to me like a perfect example of this model working when Jaswinder brought in some of his meditation practices, and he also asked some questions of others, what practices they had tried. So in that sense, it was quite adapted to the people specifically in the room at the time. And if you have one person who has that initiative and brings it on and takes leadership for that period of time, and if you have the rest of the room being willing to follow it and being willing to be interested in it and test it out, then you have a model for a really exciting model that works. And you have agreements. The problems with agreements have then been solved. But it really does require that, first of all, you have someone who takes an initiative, and you have recipients with an open mind who don't resist it. Because if you resist it, if you begin to argue, nitpicking, that really disrupts this natural flow. But if you can have a little patience, if we can give space for those initiatives, then it's a really, really beautiful thing and exciting thing. It's just that then you really come up to this stuff with ego and stuff like that, and wanting recognition, and so that kind of stuff can surface sometimes, and that can create troubles. And when it does, then it's an opportunity to see it and learn about it and work through it collectively, which is also something that has happened in several of the conversations. So the conversation space can really be very vivid, and it's some substantial developments can happen. So yeah, that seems to me like a key takeaway. And I love that you brought up the Trello board, Sam, because I really feel that is a part of the thing that will really help if we can have at least one place where you have at least a few people who regularly engage with it and try to put in quality material that's going to be really useful, and then we can bring that into the conversations later, and then you have a mutual feedback loop between the spoken conversations and an expanding repository, a group memory, and I feel that Trello is quite good for that. It's more than good enough. But it's really important that we actually have one place where at least some people are using it regularly, and then bringing it back to the conversations, and then bringing the conversations or elements from the conversations back to the Trello board. So it's this mutual feedback loop. And that's also a really beautiful model that will work. But again, it's going to demand at least some initiative and leadership, actually. Yeah. So with that, I'm good.
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, Colin. Who next? By the way, as a personal observation, I'm finding that it's actually reasonable to be taking notes in Trello, especially if you set up some of these labels/lists ahead of time. And I actually like the way they're set up today, because as someone says something, to me, it kind of makes sense where to put it. And then you can easily drag a card from one list to another list. And then anybody here can actually edit any of that. So I think that to me, I mean, look, notes are not a bad way to do it. Maps are not a bad way to do it. Workflowy outlines, which I use all the time, are not a bad way to do it. But this is more visual, and I think people like that visual 2D notion, especially with the drag and drop and drill through. So that's just my observation from having used it for this purpose today. Anyone else? Les, you've been very quiet today. Just wonder, you've been very quiet today.
No, I do a check out on the issues facing the GCC. One of them is the chat session. If I'm watching this back on YouTube,
Can you hear me? Oh,
I can't see the chat session when I'm watching.
Sorry,
it back
Les.
on
Alex was trying to give his checkout.
So that's a problem for the people watching on YouTube. All those links and all that conversation in the chat window are not available to them. There's a possibility.
I'm going to comment on that one, Alex. I do harvest and put all of those notes in the notes and transcript associated with YouTube at the end of every session. So all of those notes and links should be there. And I've been doing that, I think, for over a year now, FYI.
I do agree, though, with what Alex is saying, and there could be a YouTube live type thing we could do and have the chat going and have more of a fishbowl experience, especially if this becomes more popular. There might be like 5 or 6 shows spawn off from the general, what you call, I guess you're saying this is the, see if I can follow the Trello board here. You're saying that we're kind of in the community square. And I kind of think we're like in a building lobby. So those are 2 visual images of where we are right now. The village square is probably where we want to be, but in the building lobby, I think is where we are. So once we do or get more popular and there's 30 or 40 people watching it, and there might be, 3 people that have an initiative and a topic and a focus they're trying to push forward. and people asking questions from the audience. There's a lot of different things we could experiment with, but it's definitely an interesting thing how we can scale. And I think that's what we're also, that's another objective that we have. How do we scale these conversations? So without having a good visual of what's actually being discussed, it's hard to not get lost in the conversations, especially when they can be high level. I noticed Alex mentioned that he thinks that people talking about their local initiatives are more interesting. I think he's right, because people are actually doing stuff and you can actually wrap your mind around that. But there's also all of the technology that has to be done in the background, the meta work, in order to make that presentable, even like you mentioned, web pages and things like this. So Trello board's another example of that. So yeah, I think it's a good go of trying to visualize.
Thanks, Colin. Les, I know you also wanted to go.
Yeah, just wanted to say hello, Sam. You are magnificent. I'll say that. You're very eloquent the way you communicate. You're a very good host and I'll put it this way, compassionate, intelligent. I don't know where better words. I guess I could use other words. But there's other members of the same. I'm friendly with David and pretty much talk to some of the others from time to time, but I see you all the time, just hear you the way you talk, and you consider everybody, and you're very organized and businesslike, but friendly at the same time, because you know the purpose of what we're here for. I think what's been in the conversation is about the GCC discussions. I think now it's beginning to evolve to something greater. I feel, of course, I haven't been here as long, but it's going to be more than, because I see people wanting a little bit more than what they've been doing in conversation, and they want to be able to add so much to it, to conversation, so more people can be attracted to it. And I like the idea of everybody's right now in the main hall, or whatever you want to call it, not in the public square yet, but the idea is we still have a place that we come to and to explore new ideas and everything, and to take the ideas, these concepts that everybody seems to hit on a lot, that makes sense for the for the forum to grow. I think we're going in the right direction. In my primitive way, my basic way of just feeling, more than knowledge of how to organize and get things done with technology, I wanted to have Zoom discussions and that would be attracted to different age people, and also of different locations, and for each community, that it could grow into something more of a common thing, what we're doing. So the public place that we set as a model can be set up in communities where it'd be more of something specific to learn and to understand each other, and just like we have been doing, and discuss ideas to make our, obviously the world a better place. And it's all this is a process of learning where we're at and what we need to do to change ourselves before, and then create a model or a business or something of that nature that would, that other people could understand. So I think that it's happening here, as David mentioned, what he's doing, and probably other people too. I mean, he's setting the model up because it can, and then people know it can be done. People come together once they have the tools that that they learn that brings people together spiritually and so forth, education, taking care of everybody's needs. and everybody feels comfortable, then debate. If everybody finds their basic needs met in a healthy way, and they find happiness and to that standard, then that's what makes a difference, I think, because you got to remember our foundation of learning and evolving, I believe, has come from diversity. So, and I think that's been mentioned before. You see different people in this conversation come from different cultures, but we all come here with the same heart to learn, listen, and share what we know to help people understand one another and what everybody's doing to make a difference, whether it's in their community or in the world. But I think that I'd like to see this platform go from the main room to the. I'd be real excited to see it go to the public place. I like the way that's stated, where people can come together online. That when people see a visual, and if you have to use technology where trees are there and people are there, like one of these games, fine, I don't care. But anything that would help younger people or all ages say this is a great place. If we can't go out in our community, let's go online and do it, and let's talk to it and feel good about it. So it's just a matter of finding that place of happiness with others and knowing that's important to you. And I think I applaud everybody here because I think everybody's trying to add to that to try to create something special. I just really love it. So I just want to thank everybody. Really do, deep from my heart there. I don't have the knowledge and expertise everybody has, and I just have my own ideas, and it's more abstract, but I love sharing, and I love to see other people happy, as David would tell you. I love to, so that's my main thing is just see people spread smiles in this world. If we can do that in a small way every day, I think we've accomplished something. But anyway, I'm gonna let it go now, Sam. I talk a little too much. I apologize, but thank you for giving me a chance to talk. And I'm done for today.
Thank you, Les. Appreciate the thought there. Anyone else?
Thank you.
A few words to check out with. Going once. Going twice. Sold. Thank you all again. David, Les, and Christopher. You're not here. Welcome back again. Appreciate it. Hopefully see you either tomorrow or next time, whichever that is. Bye for now.